Hi, how are you? I wanted to talk about something today that is very different from online visibility and perhaps human design, but I am sure that me speaking out for about this topic for some people is going to be really, really helpful. And this is why I'm doing this in a very casual scenario. And this is why I believe that even though it's a very new information to me, I'm 47 and looking back at my life, I can see how much this affected my whole entire life, especially in specific areas of my life where it showed. And also, I want to share with you what I think about this influence and my human design in a way, and also how I can and am planning to enhance my life in order for a more quality life and more empowered way of taking the bulls by the bull one bull. I just have one bull to take by its horns, right? And take the bull by its horns and deal with it, and really, really deal with it. We only are given one life. We're only given this one in this lifetime, the chance to explore, the chance to experience. And I believe that everything that comes into our lives, there is a reason for it. By the way, visibility tip: put your phone on silent whenever you are going live, right? Or whenever you're recording a video. It's a good thing to do, not to have notifications. And my friends, this is how this brain works, right? Immediately switched off, new things happened. And as you know, it never stopped me from doing videos, from showing up, because at the end of the day, this is what we are as humans, right? We're all very different. That's why I love human design, because it's the system, it's the science of differentiation. It's how we are unique. And the world we're living in wants to homogenize. And it's a difficult word, and not everybody knows what it means. It means making everyone the same, right? And we are not the same. We're not the same. I feel kind of lucky when we grew up. I'm 47, so when I was growing up, our parents, the way they taught us is to be like the same, and if we were different, it was like, no, you have to be like this, no, you have to be like this. And that's the way they grew up, and that's the way their parents grew up. So that's the kind of didactic way that we were told to get over ourselves and be what, we were supposed to be. And it's okay. It's normal. We can't hold it against our ancestors, our parents. We can't hold it against. But what I really love living in this era, in sort of like the 20s of the 21st century. I was always actually very excited that I will be living in the 21st century as a kid. And I love that because this is now an era where we're discovering so much about the uniqueness, whichever way we want to approach it. So one of the way that the world is expanding the understanding of uniqueness is the understanding of neurodiversity and the fact that the brains are wired so differently. In fact, if you look at the whole spectrum of how brains are designed, there's only a very small sliver of that pie that is called neurotypical. The rest is all the spectrum. Most of us, people with quirks, people with some things that we are thinking that they're, bad things. We can't focus, we procrastinate with this or that, can be so easily explained by the fact that your brain is wired differently, that your brain is designed differently, that the chemicals work differently than what the world's rules dictate you should be. I have never been diagnosed. This is going to be now a very, very straightforward, honest sharing here, because I have not gone to the doctors and went through assessments, through tests, but I know for a fact, and there's no doubt to it, and yes, it is self-diagnosed, but there's no doubt to it, that I have an ADHD brain. And my mom took me to the doctor in the beginning of the 80s. I think I was about 4, because I was such a hyperactive kid and I was very different. And she was worried for me. It was not normal, for what she observed in me comparing to all my cousins and other children, small children that she knew. And the thing is that ADHD wasn't diagnosed, or any of the neurodivergent types of brains weren't diagnosed unless it was really heavily affecting the quality of life. So it was like medical conditions, right? But neurodiversity is not a mental disease, or it's not a condition. It's just different brain. And therefore, the chemical balance is different. And therefore, some things are different, My daughter has been diagnosed with being on the spectrum, not ADHD specifically, autism, and she's what they used to call high functioning person, which is you wouldn't know because there's a lot of things to do with social interaction, to do with overstimulation, to do with other things that are just not obvious. Plus, females mask these conditions so much better than males. So in males, you see these things much more obvious. In females, we mask, we camouflage, we make ourselves fit, we hide it better. And so that's something that I always knew about myself, that I'm different. And I learned to live with that. This one thing that I absolutely love about my personality is the fact that I am an optimist. And even when I have days that are, in fact, like today, days that I'm feeling down, I'm always looking for a solution, for the way to channel this. I do not want to be in the self-destructing mode. It's really important to me. And that's just part of my personality. And I know not everybody is like this. And I really, really emphasize with everybody who gets really down and they don't see the way out. And I kind of always look for the way out, because in human design, I have this sense, it's a very, very small variable that determines how you sort of like, how you take action. I need to do something, in order for me to deal with life. This is what the action sense is. And so in order for me to do something, I'm recording this video to share this because I know this will help other people. So my self-diagnosed ADHD is not to do necessarily, there's several types, there's a lot of subtypes. And there's one thing that I've today heard on one of the podcasts. I went into this rabbit hole of researching because yesterday I had an insight. And an insight about ADHD was about ADHD in relationships even more. We are always talking about the focus, lack of focus, procrastination, kind of business and work and life related. But for me, the biggest theme throughout my whole life and the biggest heartbreak was always in personal relationships. And I am an online visibility expert, a strategist. And really, if you think about online visibility, yes, you're putting yourself out there. Actually, I'm going to talk about it in terms of ADHD and in terms of what this does. I just realized that I still had some of the virtual backgrounds there showing, and the kind of purple portals were opening around my head. Yeah. There we go. The brain just switched to that, but that's done. So with online visibility, actually, and everything I did in life, the ADHD would explain what it is. And ADHD is, the abbreviation doesn't even kind of tell you what it is, because it says attention deficit, hyperfocus or hyperactive disorder. Yes, it has to do with attention, and a lot of things are determined by that. But I want to share what I've learned, so I think that you will find this very, very interesting. So let's start with this, with the personal. So this is a very private, personal share for me. Not that I'm not going to tell like specific, although probably very openly. I'm not going to like name any names or anything like that. It's not private details, but it is really important to understand that with this type of brain design, part of it, there's a very specific chemical balance, and also it's really specific to each individual. So when I say I have ADHD, or I suspect I have, that's not exactly the same thing that someone else who says I have ADHD might experience, because their brain might be, I don't want to say malfunctioning, but functioning in a different way within a different area of their lives, right? For me, the majority of problems that it's causing is in my private relationships. And one of the things with that chemical balance for the people who have ADHD is dopamine deficiency. It's dopamine deficiency. So you literally, in plain terms, you need to be stimulated a lot. And sometimes when you're understimulated, you might feel down, or you start getting seeking the place where you feel connected and where you feel happy, and then going really almost obsessed and hyper fixating on what brings you that happiness. Yes, in some people, and that's not me, thank God, it could be alcoholism, it could be addiction to stimulants, to drugs, you know, to gambling, to loads of things like that, even, you know, video games, right? Video games, whatever gives you that dopamine. I stopped playing video games at the age of 18. Little did I know about all that stuff that's going on, right? But I noticed that I was so addicted to it, and it was bringing me so much joy that felt a little bit unnatural. And I just made a conscious decision not to do it. With alcohol, no, it just puts me to sleep. But with a lot of things that I'm giving up in my life, and as I'm growing older now, my body can't digest that there's sugar addiction, there's loads of other little things like gluten, lactose, and I'm giving up those things because my body can't digest it. But I also see how sometimes with some things I am just addicted to them, you know, and it's like I'm hyper fixated on them, so I'm giving them up. But there's one area in my life that I can't give up on. And this is all to do with love, personal relationships, and personal happiness. You know, now human design, if I bring the human design into it, there's two parameters there. One, I'm a projector. Projectors here are to know who they are in relation to the other. We are locked in on the other because our auras are getting locked in on the others and going deep. And this is how oracally we are designed, right? As projectors, right? So that's one element that I see that, okay, so I am like this. This is the way I'm designed, you know. And what I see with the ADHD labeling, and also with human design profiling of the personality, of the energetic sort of mechanics, right? There is so much, you know, they kind of explain each other in a way. So it's not exclusive, and it's not saying if you're a projector, you have ADHD, not at all, because there's so much more. Projector is only an energy type, you know, there's like 4 energy types in the world, but we are so unique. There's so many other little things, like I mentioned, my sense of action, not everyone has it. And, you know, there's so many things that are different. Again, I switched the topic, right? ADHD would explain that. But so with human design, being a projector is the one thing. The other thing in my human design is when I was born, my incarnation cross, so the 70%, my sun, both in my conscious and unconscious design, the earth that grounds me, this incarnation cross, these influences are all in the quarter of duality, which is about bonding. And actually I have a right angle cross, which is very introspective. Karmically, it's about me. And it's about consciousness, which is understanding, relationships, bonding, connection. Of course, in my life, I'm going to be so hooked up on relationships. I think that love is the topic, and it's not I think that. From the age of 3, when I fell in love with D'Artagnan from Three Musketeers, the movie, right? The Soviet movie, which was really good. It was kind of like a little bit of a musical even, so it just fed so much, stimulated me on so many levels. You know, I'm into music so much. And so I fell in love, and I told everybody, you know, I'd be like externalizing it and telling everybody that, oh my God, thank God, Constance is dead. He's available now. I'm going to go to Paris and marry D'Artagnan. You know, it was huge. My life is all about falling in love. And it's not about infatuation. It's not about sex addiction. It's not about, you know, like kind of going from man to man. It's not about that at all. It's actually is about connection, which coincidentally, when you study about ADHD and how ADHD actually affects with the whole need for stimulation, with the very, sometimes with some people, very high sex drive, very high hyper focus on their partners, oversharing. This is me, actually. All these things are me. It's not necessarily going to apply to everyone with ADHD. I want to stress this so much, that this is an individual thing. But when I'm not getting all that, what do I get? Because I was in relationships for 20 years. My second husband, who passed earlier this year, we had really strong relationships, but there was a lot of problems, and the way they were, even though monogamous, there was a lot of problems that I see now from this ADHD lens, that would explain a lot of that, that there was not enough stimulation, but there was a big connection, and that kept us going. So the connection is really important for a person with a brain like mine. And yet in human design, this is all my life is about. This is what I'm here to experience, to understand, to really deeply get, and of course to share my findings, because I'm a 1-3 profile. I'm so introspective, intellectual, and it goes through, not intellectual that I can quote poetry and all that, not that kind of intellectual. Intellectual means that my mental processes are always on. I always digest and process information. I research a lot to find the bottom line. That's the kind of intellectual process of the 1-3. And so I'm looking for the bottom line in relationships. And yesterday I had this insight about ADHD, which I suspected for a long time that I have. And some time ago, it was I met someone, and I went out with someone briefly who had ADHD, and it showed me almost like in a mirror what I was experiencing, because we were very similar. And that made me think, but then, it stopped, and it went away from my life. And now it came back to me with different relationships that I'm in now. And it came to me in a way that was mind-blowing. It was like a punch in the face, because while I am a superwoman on many levels, right? This ADHD part, it just makes it much more intense than it should be. Yeah. And when I say should, and I'm not into shoulds, and everybody has their unique pace and unique process, but it is something that is causing so much pressure, more on my partner even, and maybe on me, in terms of like just the weight of it, just dealing with the intensity all the fucking time. It's exhausting, it's exhausting. But what happens on the end of that exhaustion is not slowing down. It can be just turned off completely. And that is the problem with this kind of brain, right? So how does ADHD shows in relationships? It's really important to kind of identify this. I mentioned that you can have a very low sex drive, or you can have a very high sex drive, depending on if your brain is overstimulated or needs stimulation. You can jump between the two too, by the way. Dopamine deficiency can make you, especially, I'm going to talk as a female, right? So it always had in all my relationships and all my life. I wish I knew this, and I was empowered to deal with it much earlier in life. But it's like, but these are the words I'm saying. And, I had tears in my eyes yesterday thinking about this, because this hurt. This is something I was told not in a positive way about myself when the relationships didn't work out, and when, my heart was broken. Really broken. And so one of the ways, because you're looking for that, you're so hooked up on that connection and the dopamine that it's giving you, that you're becoming very eager. You want more connection, you want more sex, right? So you're becoming very eager. You just need to, it's like addiction, right? You want that, so you become very needy. The neediness, you can't stop thinking about it. Like, you can't stop thinking about the person. You're literally hooked up on that person. And yes, as a projector, I can see how the aurically it can also happen. But the thing is that as a projector in human design, if you can't be constantly in the other person. They have to invite you for the guidance, but then you can't be constantly connected. For a projector, for example, if your partner is a generator, for a projector, it's very sweet to be connected to them, just like get that sacral energy all the time. But for the other person, it can be uncomfortable. They need a break from you and your laser focus attention for a while. So kind of makes sense on that level. I wrote about it in my article, is about projectors and generators compatibility. And also the other thing as well is about the boundary invasion. So yes, I sometimes talk about generators can come in and just invade projectors' boundary, because projectors don't have much energy, and generators are always like, so much energy. Why, like, let's go out, let's do these things. And you're like, I'm exhausted. And, that's a different conversation. But there's also another projector, another boundary invasion that comes from a projector. So, in my case, with my ADHD, I can get so locked in on the person that is just constant seeking attention from them, which is not good. And my alarm went up and it's 11:11, this means that what I'm saying here is just so poignant, right? And I really hope that it will help. Another thing as well that comes with this is oversharing. So open communication is key to managing ADHD in partnerships. The partner, if they're neurotypical and they don't suffer with it, or they don't have it in a certain way, their patience with you, their understanding of you is super important. But it's also, on the other hand, on your end, it's also understanding and managing that you can overshare. You can be so, your adoration, you can smolder your partner in your adoration, and while you could be a perfect person for them in many ways, smoldering never works. Love bombing never works. It never ever works. So it can feel like you're suffocating them. And that was a big aha moment for me, although I kind of always suspected that I'm prone to doing that, but that was the aha moment yesterday, was when I was doing my research and actually heard several other women sharing this whole thing about oversharing and being overpowering and being a little bit obsessed in their relationships, and how this really didn't work for them. Another thing is the struggling with patience, so struggling with patience, waiting until your partner reaches out to you. And what happens when this happens is that you're denying your partner an opportunity to miss you, an opportunity to lead the dance in a way. I love that, lead the dance, the discovery, the opportunity of discovery. Let's talk about this discovery thing, because there is something that with an ADHD brain, the most important need, apart from connection that I mentioned, in my experience, in my lived experience, is the feeling of safety. And this also, in my lived experience, corresponds with my 1-3 profile, this one line in human design. One line, the bottom line is important. The feeling of security is important. The feeling of safety is important. So when you're with somebody and you're not sure yet, in the beginning, it's really difficult, because you don't know if this is going to work out or not. But you need the sense that, okay, let's just have a default that it's going to work out, because I can't even start thinking about the fact that it's not going to work out, because that gives me insecurity, that just, kind of breaks my foundation. So I am almost sort of saying, why do I need to spend my energy, nerves and emotional energy on this if it's not going to work out? Funny observation here is that, of course, things can not work out. I'm actually absolutely fine with that, because that means I'll just have a new adventure in a way. And I'm saying it in a very cynical way. Obviously, if I'm in love with somebody, I don't want this for not to work out. And in fact, I am actually going deep, and I'm like, okay, I am okay with this for the rest of my life too. I've done this before, and so it's okay. But it might not be, and it's also okay. But I don't want to think about it, because I can't be full-heartedly into relationships when I'm kind of going in and thinking, okay, well, let's see, maybe it'll not gonna work out, and I'm okay with that. So I'm okay with that, but there is a but, right? There's a but. I don't want to be okay with that. I want it to work out every fucking single time. Obviously, when I am not with the right person and I feel it. And here's where human design comes in. Let's talk about this other thing. So the discovery can trigger insecurity. Grant. Communication is very important. Really explaining what you want is very important, or what they want from you is kind of important, because you just can't guess. You go into that triggered insecurity zone, and that's not good. The other thing as well is, what did I want to say? That was the other thing. Insecurity. See, this is what happened. The brain just I'm not even cutting this out. And in my online visibility, if you follow me through that kind of world, I call it Juliette Stapleton effect, because the brain fog and these things, they happen to many people. with ADHD is going to happen more. With a woman at the age of 47, when I'm in my perimenopause, that's another huge, like it's a huge black hole about your any neuro spicy symptoms are going to be heightened because of your hormonal level, like your hormonal changes, or hormonal changes, I should say. That is insane. So while, maybe before perimenopause, you can still, as a woman, deal with these things. Now you're kind of thrown back into how you were as a teenager. And that's exactly how I feel. It's mental. It's really, really crazy, and it's mental. And you know what? I was hoping that I will remember what I was going to say about the next thing about ADHD. But let me just go into, there's another thing as well. So yes, we are talking about stimulation. So a lot of stimulation, and I mentioned, in terms of relationships, is like sex. This can also sometimes completely switch off, or you can be overstimulated and you need a completely different type of stimulation. This is really important that it's communicated to your partner. It's so important that the partner understands as well. And that's where as well an issue can happen. The partner might not want to be like, talking about these things. So there's so much navigation that is required when you're dealing with this condition. So much. It's not a condition. It's just the way your brain is. It's just the way you are. It's what makes you special. It's what makes you that super woman, right? But you need to assess. You need to assess the excess. And that's what we're doing here. So one of the things that I want to talk about is like, how can you deal with this? I don't want to go and get medication. Honestly, I just don't. One of the reasons why I don't want to take medication is because I forget. I have so many pills on my like kitchen table in front of me, different like vitamins and things like that. I completely forget. I'll be good for a few days and I forget. And I know that's been always my life. So there's no way I want to find a solution in medicating myself in terms of stimulation. So my next thinking was, okay, how can you deal with low level of dopamine without fixating on your partner? Because this is what happens, the happiness comes from the feeling of love, or the feeling of connectedness, even more so, so of course you want more of it, and you're just like literally all the time it's at the back of your head, which is very exhausting. It really is exhausting, and it's distracting, and sometimes it's self-destructing, so it's not good. So there's a few things that we need to, if you are listening, and if you are like me, there's a few things that you can consider. And it's not about getting yourself busy, because it's impossible. Our brain, the ADHD brain, usually works on interest driven decisions rather than the priority driven decisions. In fact, one of the things that really kind of shocked me a little bit is that what can be impacted is your decision making. For example, when you're going shopping, and especially because I was studying like in terms of how do you deal with that when your hormones are changing, and when you're in this perimenopause, menopause, how do you deal with these other things, right? Like lack of focus, for example. As a projector in human design, I already talk about the fact that I can be super productive and then have couple of weeks that I have nothing. I'm nothing to create. There's no creativity coming out of me. Like ADHD would explain this exactly. You have hyper focus, and then you just have like an off button, right? And you're not lazy. When that happens, it's nothing to do with being lazy. It's literally inability to focus on anything, and that can happen too. So that's one of the things that I see how my human design is explaining what on the medical side, or on that kind of scientific side, the ADHD is explaining in me. But I still want a solution, because as I started here, I want a solution for this. I do not want to just live with it and be upset about it and be down, and then try and navigate between being constantly like focused on someone and then trying to hold back and feeling bad about it. I want a solution. So one of the solutions is try and find things that give you dopamine. But for me, it's really important that they're healthy things, that they're not addictions, that they're not like, I don't want to go back playing video games or something like this. It's also time suck, and it's not efficient, and I can't deal with this, even a notion of doing something that is self-harmful or inefficient, even though I could spend a lot of inefficient time sitting fixating on something. This is just a weird thing, right? But I don't want to do it that it's self-inflicted. So one of the things is I find what I'm going to I can't make any promises. So what I think could really help is finding activities in your life that are bringing you joy. Either joy is like stimulating joy, or uh, really, really good relaxation. So if you like baths, take baths. If you like saunas, go much more often, like schedule that into your time. I know that I am not doing a lot of things because, right now I live on my own. It's the first time I live on my own in 47 years of my life. So it's a lot to change and process and take in and get used to and build new habits. But one of the things, and also, because you're living always with other people, you kind of have this huge lifetime habit of considering others in anything you do, or doing things only when others are doing it with you. So you need company for everything, but there are things that are really, really good for my relaxation. For example, I really love swimming. I really love going to spa centers and just going to saunas, and then so I do get bored when I'm on my own, so I kind of would like to have a company, and I don't know how to be on my own in public places. There is social interaction issues that you will never believe I have, right? But they are there, and this is what masking is, they are definitely there. There's like awkwardness, and sometimes you overcompensate, sometimes you just don't engage, and that's also kind of strange and weird, right? Regular exercise. So I go twice a week to my air yoga class, and I'm very, very specific, and I know now that this air yoga, it's not about just an hour of stretching, and it's good for the body, and it's good for the figure and self-esteem, obviously, but it's about the group of people who go there too, so they're kind of like people who I feel connected, again, that word, like the trainer. And I know if that trainer moves to another studio or something, I'm actually gonna follow her and get out of my way. And I know my sister, we were discussing fitness, and she was saying a lot of times people go to different centers because their trainer moved. And I can see that, because you get connected. For some people it's not important, and they can just train whatever they want. For me it's important, right? This is the reason why I am struggling now to find an extra physical activity, because I need the connection with the person who's going to lead me, and I can't do it on my own. I need to do it with somebody. Personal trainer, I don't know if I want that much like in my face. I'm still a loner, but I like the kind of like group where you can be half anonymous if you want to, or you can be put your 2 cents like I tend to, and then become the veteran of the group. And that's what happens to me, because at the end of the day, I'm the queen of visibility, and I need to be visible, right? So those are things. Facials, I really relax, so what are the things in your life that give you the joy, and maybe you feel like you're not doing it enough because you don't deserve it or something? I think that this is where we have to deal with this hyperfixation on, let's say, romantic relationships, and taking away and going into something that gives you more joy for whatever reason. And here's then, just in talking about this is because I am an online visibility strategist. First of all, I have always been very good at being visible, from very early age, and even though my level of talent might not always match my online visibility, right? My level of here's what I'm talking about. Since I was a very little kid, I was always starring as the lead role in all kindergarten plays, school plays, right? Then I was in a band. I was singing from the very early age. I was always the center stage, and I was always the center of attention. In a group, while I can add my 2 cents and all that, I am not really like the center of attention necessarily. And I was an ugly duckling. I was not a good looking kid. And yet I was still in the group of popular kids. When I watch some American movies about, popular girls in the school, and I'm like, I can't believe, like, we had a few popular girls in our class, and I was still in that group because I'm kind of like the outsider, but I am the leader, so everybody follows me, because I'm visible and I'm the center of their attention. I have that leadership ability, right? So I was always on stage. I was always doing something in front of people. And then when that sort of changed with my second marriage, that has changed. My husband was, I suspect, also had ADHD. That would explain how we got so fixated on each other. But then there was a lot of overpowering energies from him, and I stepped down. It was too much for me, and we didn't have open communication either about this. So I stopped singing. I stopped for a long time being in the center of attention. That was difficult for me, personality wise. It was difficult because I felt like people don't see me. I felt like people don't appreciate me. And then I felt bullied a lot of times in the workplaces. I felt invisible, unseen, misunderstood, and therefore bullied. It was actually really horrible and lasted for throughout my whole 30s. When I was in managing positions, I was appreciated by in what I was doing, because I have this like master things over time, even in my design, the gate 4816, I speak with enthusiasm. So even when I was working in hospitality and I was serving tables, like there would be a huge group of regulars who would be coming there for me. People did see me still, so I always had that. But then I went back into the world of online visibility, and because I've always built these, I always did something that I wanted to share with the world. Today, I am recording this because I want to share with the world, with women out there, women my age specifically, who might not realize that they have ADHD that is affecting their personal lives. And it's not about not having focus or not, or procrastination. Maybe it is for you, but for me, it's kind of bordering on almost sabotaging my personal relationships. And all I want in life is to love somebody and feel secure in it. So then I can do my other shit. Right? This is how simple things are for this brain, for this complicated brain. And yet, here's the thing about the business and online visibility. And this is the reason why I just spent so much time telling you about my past and how I was always very visible. That doesn't mean that, if you have not grown up on stage, that you can't start building your visibility. But if you have this kind of brain, this being in the spotlight actually is a stimulation. Recording this video, dressing up, putting funky glasses on, this is all adding to this experience of me finding that stimulation that my brain requires. So I don't need to be desperately seeking for it from another person who also has their own life and their own stuff to deal with, right? So I can focus much more on me. And throughout my life, up until I met my second husband, I actually had that stimulation all the time in a form of maybe, being in music. So having gigs, meeting people, rehearsing. There's always this kind of like high vibes, with that, that came. And even now, I am, there is a possibility I'll go back into singing as well as what I'm doing, online. Maybe yes, maybe not, because I don't know. But I can see how finding activities that allow you to channel yourself in a way that stimulates you, it's almost like sex. It's almost like masturbation. Yeah, self-stimulation. This is what the ADHD brain needs. It needs to find the way to stimulate itself so it gets a bit high, so it gets the dopamine, so it gets that, what medication give you. I do not want to take medication. This is not what I want. And I don't think that we should just, dive into medication so easily, although yes, it does help. I know in my family and my daughter and, anyone with mental health issues taking medication, they're saying, it's kind of like it works, but because I have this action sense that I always look for solution, I don't feel like I get stuck too much. I can have a day of anxiety, but I bounce faster. So why do I need to take medication? But here's the thing with the online visibility, you can choose. And I am a walking proof. I am a walking proof that you can build a business that is profitable enough for you to afford the life you want, and more, of course, if you find the systems to scale it, that allow you to stimulate yourself by showing up and make it about you and about your self-expression and about this self-stimulation that is in a public eye, but it is of value because you're sharing something, you're stimulated, you're intellectually, spiritually, energetically stimulated. So you're sharing this for the benefit of others. That's actually collective circuitry that I have a lot, and individual, where I walk my talk, right? What I'm talking about is my life. This is my lived experience. This is not some theory. This is not somebody else, something they said. This is what I experience. And if I experience this, there could be a chance that you're experiencing this, right? And maybe what I've been talking about, everything, including my personal stories, to give you some background, to set this lore, this world, right, for you. Maybe that's what really will help. So what in my work really helps me? Video. So I am in my, ordinary clothes, and I'm not too done up for this. But that actually adds to it when I go and do my full makeup. I love it. I love looking good. That again, self-esteem, boost your self-esteem is so important. If you have ADHD, do anything you need to boost your self-esteem, right? Makeup, hair, whatever it is for you, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be. This is what it is for me. So, and you can see I'm not super polished. I still have kind of messy hair and everything. I am not like, you do you. That's so important that we all learn to do ourselves while we're accepting and trying to understand the other, right? So, writing. Sometimes it's not about talking. Sometimes for me, it's writing. But what it does, it creates what we call evergreen content. So I'm recording this today. I'm going to put it on YouTube. I'm going to maybe stick it on medium.com, somewhere where more people can see it. It's not that relevant to my business, but although it is, because there's so much more neurospicy people out there in the world than we can ever imagine. There's much less neurotypical people that dictate the rules of the world, or the rules of the world sort of fit them better, let's just say. And as we look at our children, there's more and more neurodivergent children are born, and much less neurotypical. The world is about to expand into the world of uniqueness, into the world that operates by completely different parameters. And I'm not saying it because I'm into human design or some sort of thing that says this is the year where things will change. It's not about that. It's about what I see. It's about what I see and what I believe in, and I really see it even in myself. The world will become much more accepting diversity. And our children, my daughter is 23, even her generation and the generations after that will only make it more about the uniqueness. And we're only at the dawn of this new era, which is very exciting. We won't remember it when we're in our next lifetimes, right? But it's a very exciting lifetime to experience. And it's good to raise awareness about these things. It's good to know there's nothing wrong with you. Yes, all my life, in most of my relationships, I felt so misunderstood. So many of my relationships, I was pushed away because I was too much. Because I was fixating too much on the other person, and it was suffocating for them. And it took me 47 years to really understand what's going on, and hopefully find the way to A, communicate this to my partners, B, work with it. Because it's not about just saying, hey, I have, like a lot of people say, oh, well, I have an ADHD, and it's like a label, and then it's an excuse. It's not an excuse, it doesn't make you a bad person, but it's not an excuse, and you can still work with finding the way and not compromise, but coexist. And if sometimes it's not going to be possible, and sometimes it will be possible, because there are other people in the world that you're dealing with that are also smart, and they can also learn to or choose to accept you the way you are without getting stressed about it, because they know why, right? That's why I'm also sharing this video. It's really important. And finding then things that stimulate you outside the relationships or outside. So in your work, there's so many people procrastinate. Let's talk about this, the online visibility. There's so many people procrastinate because of this brain type, right? But it is about saying, okay, but what can I do more of that does stimulate me in my business? And trust me, these things, these pieces of content we're creating, those are the ones that will work for you. You don't have to every day create something like this, because you're not going to feel like this every day. You're not going to feel like you want to share. You're not going to feel excited, lit up about it. It's normal for us not to be consistent with being creative or wanting something to say. But the piece will be already there. And that piece works for you every day, consistently. It might not attract you a client every day, but it will now, it will in a year, it will in 10 years. If this is something that, if I was talking about something here for client attraction, it just, that's how it works, right? So how can we take advantage of this crazy brain that we have, a crazy in the most wonderful sense of this, and allow this brain the stimulation it needs, but then redirect it from somewhere. And as I said, in my case, it's personal relationships. It's not going to completely take the focus. It's always here. It's just, that's the way it is. You accept it. Yeah. But you learn to work with it. Before I let you go, I really like the idea. I think it was about, so John Assaraf, one of the top leading names in personal development in the world of personal development. And it's also the first person who came into my life when I kind of dove into this world in 2017. And I really consider him one of my earth guides for a while, in the beginning. And John Assaraf talks about, I think he talks about fears in this respect, but he talks about, like, imagine a gorilla in the room. So a gorilla is a primate that is very powerful and very strong. And if you try a human, if you go and try and fight that gorilla, it's going to always win. There is no way you can beat it up. You cannot beat your fear. You cannot beat your ADHD. You cannot beat your hyperfixation. You cannot completely remove it from your life. So instead of trying doing that, and you're going to lose, one of the ways to do it is just to accept that there is a gorilla in the room and you do your own thing. So there's fear, but you continue doing. It's like, feel the fear and do it anyway. Yeah, I love that phrase because that's the thing. Feel the imposter syndrome and still share. Yeah, I'm not diagnosed with ADHD, and it doesn't make a slight difference to me believing I have it, right? I am not a human design certified consultant, and I'm still going to talk about human design because of what I learned, what I've researched, what I see, right? It doesn't bother me because this is much more important for me to share. And I forgot what I wanted to say, right? Oh yeah, John Assaraf and gorilla. And so with the gorilla, you get used to the gorilla in the room. What happens over time, and this is also my lived experience with a lot of things, especially imposter syndrome, that's why I mentioned it. So what happens to that gorilla is just in the room. It's there. But it stops being scary because it doesn't attack you when you don't poke it. Yeah, when you don't go near it, it doesn't attack you. It is just there. It's just sitting there. Maybe it's looking at you, but it's not going to attack. And now over time, you trust it. It's there, but it's not going to harm you because you're not doing anything to it. You're just doing your thing. It's the same with hyperfixation on personal relationships. The background, the thought of the person is going to be always there. Maybe the need to, maybe the longing for them to reach out, the connectedness, especially if you don't see each other very often, you want that connection expressed and you're not going to get it because it's just ridiculous to expect it every 5 minutes, but your brain does still. Yeah. But that's the gorilla in the room. And you let the gorilla sit in the corner of the room. You just let it sit while you do what you can do to stimulate that brain. Currently for me is recording this video and sharing. Yesterday, when I just started thinking about the fixation because, of something that my partner said. And I went on a research because, I thought that might have to do something with ADHD. I already had the information when I went out with the guy with ADHD. I kind of had that insight came into my head. And I went and I researched about women, menopausal age, sex, relationships, ADHD. My findings brought tears to my eyes. That's how I just felt so hurt from so much grief from what happened in the past. And a little grief in terms of I just don't want this to happen again, but it might, I have no control over that. But then how can I live that gorilla that I kind of did touch and it hurt me? How can I let it be there in the room without poking at it? I can find the other way to stimulate myself, which in my case is do a video or write an article, share it out there and put it out there. And then share it everywhere and let other people, no matter how vulnerable you feel while doing it, let other people bring you feedback. Yeah, because it's going to help others. It's definitely a hot topic. This day and age, females, ADHD, perimenopausal, menopausal age, nobody talks about it enough. Yeah, there are people who talk about it, but they don't talk about it enough in general. So there is a contribution, and all that is adds to the stimulation and feeling of being on purpose, being of value, good self-esteem, empowerment. That's what we need. That's what people with ADHD brains need more than anything, more than the meds. It's feeling empowered, feeling successful. I'm a projector by human design. I am here to feel successful and to inject everyone around me with success. And that's exactly why I went live today with this. And that is exactly what I hope that you will feel after you finish watching this video, and you'll go and start thinking, how can you find things that stimulate you so you don't need to fixate, or when your brain is switched off and you can't turn on again, how can you find that stimulation elsewhere and not where your brain is hooked up? And how can you live with this in the most empowered way?